Hey everyone, it's Andy, host of The Wedding Biz. I hope you're enjoying your holiday today, and since it is a holiday, and Melissa and I are preparing for the upcoming Engage Luxury Wedding Summit at the stunning Fairmont in Banff, we wanted to bring back an interview from way back when we first launched the show of the host and founders of Engage, Rebecca Grinnals and Kathryn Arce. Even if you're not familiar with Engage or not able to attend this particular one, their story is so inspiring. I really urge you to listen. And next week, we'll be back with a new episode along with the next level of well-known wedding and event planner and designer Kevin Lee. Now, if you plan on being at Engage in a few weeks, please say hello to Melissa and I. And now enjoy my conversation with Rebecca and Kathryn.
Welcome to The Wedding Biz, the show about the global wedding business and your backstage pass to the happily ever after world of professional dream makers.
I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you made my dreams come true. It won't crack, baby, it'll never.
Rebecca and Kathryn, when I think about all that you both have accomplished, I mean, first of all, engaging concepts, from what I understand, strategic consulting with companies that are doing weddings, honeymoons, specialty and destinations. And if that's not enough, then you all have Engaged, right? Which is this these worldwide conferences in the luxe wedding market, the luxury wedding market. You've got the biggest names in the business. I mean, from Mindy Weiss and Colin Cowie, Sylvia Weinstock, the list goes, David Beam, it goes on and on and on. You're doing all of that. And what's interesting to me, especially, is that in the context of also, and especially 20 years ago, I think you've been working together around 20 years or so. We'll get to that. In terms of women in business, especially 20 years ago, you are also relationships, marriage, challenges perhaps in the relationships, serious illness challenge, having kids, raising kids, being mothers, being wives, friends, business people, business women, the partnership together, these two companies, traveling so much. It boggles my mind. And I'm a guy. Okay, I'm a dude, right? And I have a daughter. She's now in grad school at NYU.
That's good.
And yeah, and I, I was a very present father. That was very important to me. I also, I was working, I'm traveling, I'm building. Then I'm starting to build my own business at the same time. Married, and friendships are important to me. It was hard enough for me. I can't imagine. And I know even as a father, although I was really participated an enormous amount, still I know the mother carries more of it, in various ways. And so, in the context of that, how you all have done this with all of that going on, that's really what I want to focus on and talk about. So first of all, Rebecca, and I want to hear from each of you, but did I list out the companies in the correct way and what you do?
Yes. The Engaging Concepts was the original company, which is the consulting arm. And for many years, and of course, we met at Disney. So that was our background, meeting and working at Disney together. But for the first, 7 years, really, of being away from Disney and starting the consulting, we really went around and helped hotels, resorts, and destinations around the globe market and, advise them on better business practices, sales techniques, all of those things, just having a better business, related to weddings and honeymoons. And then in 2008, we started Engage, really fundamentally because we wanted to create something that we wanted to go to that wasn't existing in the market. Mm-hmm. And I think at the heart of Engage, still 20 events later, we'll be doing our 20th event in June.
Wow.
Since 2008, is certainly at the heart of it is connecting people, but fundamentally where it started was just, and I think we still both use this tenet in everything that we do, it was about creating an event that we wanted to attend. I mean, everything from as simple as having hair and makeup for our speakers, which is really simple, but not something that's really standard at an event. The times we would go and speak and, wanting to feel our best and looks, we would be calling the hotels and concierge, and you can't get a hair and makeup person at 6 a.m. It was, in 2008. So it's not only how we also created an event that speakers want to come to. And I think that's not what we sat down on paper and wrote down, but at the heart of it, having an event that we wanted to attend and what it felt like as an attendee to enjoy it at every touch point. And then also something that our speakers didn't want to just fly in, speak, and leave was really why I think we're still doing events, 20 events.
I want to come back to that in a moment because I attended some. And Kathryn, so at Disney, what were you all doing? And did you know Rebecca before? That's how you met.
We did meet.
Did you work for Rebecca or did she the other way?
Actually, the first time I saw Rebecca, I was working at the front desk at the Grand Floridian.
Yeah.
And I wanted to...
I did an event there, so I know.
Yeah. So one beautiful hotel.
Yeah, beautiful.
But I wanted to get out of the front desk, and I noticed someone come in a wedding gown one Saturday and thought, oh, that's so pretty. She's having her pictures taken. And then the next weekend, someone came in, and I noticed they always had someone with a Disney name tag, and I realized we had a wedding department. And then a few days later, Rebecca...
That's funny. Oh, you're working there, but you didn't
I didn't even realize we had weddings at that time.
Okay.
So Rebecca came up to the desk, and I had seen they had done an Elegant Bride filler that was Disney based, and her picture was in the back. And she came up to the desk, and I thought, that's the wedding lady. And she asked me for a key to show a potential bride a suite. So in my head, I was like, I got to get out of here. I want to get in the wedding department. So it was probably another year and a half before I finally made it to weddings. And she was on the sales side. I was on the services side. So she was selling, as we used to say, selling the dream. And I was on the team that serviced the nightmare, but they were all really wonderful. We eventually had a big staff meeting, and Rebecca shared with everyone, Disney had recently acquired ABC. And she said, hey, in February, we'll be doing a week of Regis and Kathy Lee weddings.
Yeah.
For some of your listeners, they may not even realize that Regis and Kathy Lee were together, but this was a very long time ago. So I'm a huge celebrity TV fanatic. So after everybody left in the office, I went to her desk and said, I know you don't really know me that well, and I just started a few months ago, but when that opportunity comes up, can I help you with it? And she was like, sure. So a few weeks later, she came to me and said, you asked me if you could help, and do you want to help me with it? We're going to have a meeting, and we're doing this and that. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, she listened to me, and she's given me a chance, and we've been friends ever since.
Now, but what were each of you doing at that time when you both met? Like in terms of, again, your personal lives and wherever you were in relationships, where were you at? And maybe what decade of how old you are or whatever, general idea.
Well, it's good timing actually, because at the time I actually was one of the co-founders of the wedding department at Disney. So this was now a couple of years into it, right? Because we started
94.
Yeah. So this was about 3 years into it. We started the wedding department at Disney in 1991. So in 1994 is when we had a lot going on. We had the ability, we had designed and built this $7 million wedding chapel, and there were all these things happening to support that. And so I was really doing much more of the brand development, the sales and the marketing, and kind of the that end of it. Yeah. And Kathryn was, and still is to this day, basically you were a services manager at the time, but so good at logistics and so good at working with clients and making people feel special. And over the time you evolved, you worked more you kind of did a lot of the different things, but she was the yin to my yang. I mean, we worked together on that because she asked. I said, if somebody wants to do it, I want someone that wants to do it.
Yeah, sure.
And so I said, sure. I really didn't know her at all. And I'm not kidding. I can remember everything about that week and realizing that I had found somebody who worked skill set wise with me. I mean, we became friends right away, but we were colleagues we were business
We were
friends.
Probably in the department together a good year and a half before our paths really needed to cross.
I was not.
Yep.
So I was working in the wedding department. I was not married.
You weren't married. And how long?
I joined the wedding department on a Monday and I flew home on Wednesday to get married.
Oh my gosh.
So I was in weddings a few days, and then I was married probably a year and a half once we started working.
Once you started
side by side.
And Rebecca, you're saying you weren't in a relationship at this time.
No, I was just the proverbial person who did hundreds and thousands of weddings at Disney, and it was difficult to find someone that thought that was okay.
So at this point, both of you, I mean, really, you obviously don't yet have kids, not heavy into a marriage and all of that. And so it's like, yeah, we're totally available.
We
This
were
is the
really
passion.
into work. I mean, we were both at the point
And
we still
available.
are,
Yeah.
but we were available, and we were, and work, our work lives were completely, our social and work lives were totally intertwined. I mean, they really,
it really
they
did
became,
cross.
yes, it
There were no
became a big
boundaries, you're
family.
saying.
No, we became friends, and we were friends with all the people we worked with. And it was this really neat family within Disney, this wedding department at the time. And this was in the 90s. And we went through a lot together. So we became friends, but immediately it was very apparent that we made a great team.
Okay.
I mean, we find pictures back from there, and we haven't changed. I mean, you could pick us up from the 90s and how we worked on the Regis and Kathy Lee weddings and the Oprah wedding and all of these weddings that all these weddings of a lifetime and all of these big elaborate things that we worked on together. And we, to this day, what we do are those same exact roles. I mean, right? I mean, it's very
definitely.
different what
Absolutely.
we're doing, but I always say it was the best thing, obviously, that ever happened to me, because finding someone that we don't do the same thing, we think the same way, but we have very different skill sets.
So when you started to work together, did you leave at the same time to start the
No,
business?
not at
No,
all.
so we did the week of Regis and Kathy Lee, and then
And
we
then you
had
did my wedding. So she did my wedding. When I
She
finally
You
did
mean,
meet
like,
someone.
Planned it? Okay.
Yeah.
She did.
You finally met
I
someone?
finally met this amazing guy, Patrick, who's an Imagineer, and we didn't really date for that long, and we were all friends. And when he proposed, and it was, all my dreams had come true, and I was planning this great big elaborate
Especially
Disney
after living
wedding
at Disney.
Yes, and it was absolutely. I think there were at that time, 28 people in the wedding department, and there was no question in Patrick and my mind who we were going to say, "Will you please?" Not, it wasn't an honor, but just who we wanted to be with us to help us bring it all to life. And I mean, there was not even. It was like, well, of course, Kathryne's going to do the wedding, and so our anniversary actually was 19 years yesterday. So
Wow, wow.
yeah. So Kathryn was our de facto wedding planner, best friend, right hand, left hand. I mean, everything. And so, that kind of even cemented going through that experience. And so that was 19 years ago yesterday. And then
So that was
left.
in 98. And then a few weeks after that, one of the last projects we did together was the 10,000th wedding through Lifetime Television. And that was in, I think, May of 98.
Yeah.
And then my husband at the time worked for Hilton, and we had always talked about, moving to New York City or Chicago, and he was offered a job in New York City. And I'd always dreamed of living in New York City. So I moved that summer of 98.
And did you leave Disney?
Well, no, I actually moved with Resort Sales, which is the meeting and conventions arm of Disney, and went into that department, and it's totally different. Meeting planners are not like brides. When they call, they don't want to talk about linen or flowers. They just want dates, rates, and space. And I was so used to the emotion of it that I was like, this is so not for me.
Oh, okay.
However, I had a friend, and that's a long story. The Disney store on Fifth Avenue, which is the flagship store, was hiring an event producer. And so he said, you need to call my friend. So I went over there. Long story short, I started working at the Disney store on Fifth Avenue. So I worked there from 98, November of 98. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, Katie.
And what year again is this?
So that would have been spring of 99. At the same time, a few months later, Rebecca got pregnant. So we really
wow. So you shared
reconnected,
that together,
and we were
too.
able to share.
Our daughters are 3 months apart.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you say daughters? Both?
Yeah.
We both have daughters.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had Katie in December of 99. Annie was born in March of 2000. Al and I wound up moving to Boston with Hilton. And then we were like, we got to get out of here. It's freezing. We need to get back to Florida. We need to get back to our friends. And when we moved back to the town of Celebration, which is where Rebecca and Patrick lived, and a lot of our other friends too. And so we just reconnected again with our two little girls who were the same age. And maybe a year into it, I said, hey, I'm going to go and interview to do a little part-time work back in the wedding department. And Rebecca had left Disney and started engaging concepts.
I left Disney in 2001. So right before 9/11, 3 months before 9/11.
And also, and your daughter's a year old.
Yeah, she was a year and a half.
And you're leaving to start a business.
Yeah,
and you have a 1-year-old daughter.
Interestingly, at the time, Disney, I never, ever in a million years thought I would ever leave Disney. ever. I loved it. I mean, we loved Disney. We were to this day still
company.
It's us.
Yeah.
We loved Disney. We had husbands that worked. I mean, I loved it, but a lot of things were changing, and what they did is they came out with a voluntary separation plan that offered pretty significant severance, and it was kind of a one-time deal, but they blanket offered it. They offered it to everybody.
Sure, I did this with IBM.
Yeah.
Lexmark.
And so I made the decision so quickly. I woke my husband up in the middle of the night one night and I said, one of the things, I'll never forget, my boss at the time, we had a lunch, and she said, everyone's going to have to do more with much less. And I thought, I don't want to be here if I have to do much more with less. That is not my personality.
This is very typical.
Corporate, right? It was like everything from pens to, expense
parties.
accounts to travel to parties. All the fun stuff was kind of going away. And the other big thing that really was instrumental in me leaving was the only path forward and the only path up in corporate is to be a people manager and to move up. And we had gone through extensive training at Disney, and one of them was Gallup, through the Gallup organization. And my Gallup training came back and said, you are an excellent project manager, but you're not a people manager. And I knew that to be the case. Yeah. But I've never forgotten that to this day and that's why we have a company of two. By design, and we do big things. I still wonder,
we'll get to that. I don't know
we do big things with the two of us, and obviously we have teams of people and collaborate.
So contractors.
But Engaging Concepts has two people.
Wow.
It's myself and Kat.
Oh my God.
And the reason is, honestly, I never forgot that. And I think it's one of the reasons that we have been successful is because we're great project managers, but not the way forward. When you have to have an agency, you have to have a lot of people. Mm-hmm. The way forward at Disney was to be managing, continue to go up and have big departments. And then you're not doing the stuff that really makes you come alive. Yeah. And for me, it's working on the projects, whether it's a consulting project with a great big, intercontinental Asia Pacific, or is it producing Engage? So, over the time, but I had left very quickly. I mean, I made the decision and I was gone 6 weeks later, but then 2 months later, it was 9/11. Very, very scary time. I was starting a brand new consulting business, 2001. No one knew what a consultant in the wedding industry was in 2001.
So you took a big leap also.
We took a huge leap. Of course, we blew through the severance much faster than I would if I did it today.
I'm just curious for a moment. When you got the severance, like how much time, months?
It was 6 months.
So you had about 6 months.
Which sounded like a lot at the time, right? But really, in reality, once that's not really that much money.
No, but I want to stop there for a second. In terms of you having this epiphany, telling your husband you really want to go, 6 months, you've got a 1-year-old daughter, because I want to put all this together.
I thought I was going to spend more time with her.
Well, so did you have, the way you're talking about, it's like you didn't have any fear or anxiety, or did you also, really? It was almost like
I think it was one of those things. I think it was so exhilarating, and I was never a person who had an entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, I had drunk the Kool-Aid, and I loved Disney, and I felt so much ownership for Disney weddings, and I loved the people that I worked with. But there was something that just clicked, and I was like, you know what? I think that I really think there's something here. I think I could go out and help people. I've learned so much in these 10, 12 years at Disney that I could go out and help other companies.
You had a real high level of confidence going right into it. See, that's so unusual. That's so unusual to start a new business. Again, and I like to keep painting that picture.
I was very naive.
Okay. All right. Well, that's... I
had a high level of confidence, but, going back for those who remember in 2001, I mean, obviously, we had a great big computer on our desk, that was huge.
Gateway.
It was still, a big gateway computer with making the noise. It wasn't really like you put up a website and you came. It was.
So you didn't really, you were like dove in with passion, but you didn't really know what it was going to take.
I had no idea. There was no roadmap. What I had was a lot of connections.
Yeah.
And again, I think going back to at the heart of it, Simon T. Bailey, who, as you know, has spoken at a lot of Engage conferences. He's a motivational speaker. Right. Simon worked with us at Disney. And so that's one of the reasons he is part of a lot of what we do. But, one time I had heard Simon speak and we had to go do an exercise, and you had to circle different words, one of those kinds of things. But at the heart of everything, it keeps coming back to connections. We have this amazing connection, Kath and I. And I also had all of these amazing connections in the wedding industry through Disney. Mm-hmm. And Kathryn had them too, because living in New York, she stayed connected and worked with Marcy and did a lot of these kinds of things. So I think at the heart of it, when you start a business, it really is about leveraging the connections that you have.
Yeah.
And about creating real connections with people. And I think that's one of the reasons Engage is we're so connected on social media, but we're not.
Yeah.
And so back then there was no social media.
That's
I mean,
right.
you had to be connected. You had to write people newsletters.
Oh, wow.
Call them
Letters,
on the phone.
stamps.
There was no texting. There was no, I mean, there were emails, but it was pretty rudimentary.
I remember. Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of fear. There was a lot of naivete, and where the fear set in was once, 9/11 happened and the world kind of stopped for 6 weeks.
Sure.
And people were like, now at this point, everyone was hanging on by their fingernails for a job, let alone to hire someone as a consultant, which is the first thing.
And this is also in the world of discretionary income, which is the first thing that took a hit. I mean, I went full time, let's say, in music business. I started while I was in the corporate world, but it was 1998. And then same thing, 2001 hits. And I had a daughter, at that time, I think she was maybe 4.
She was only a little bit older.
Yeah.
She's only a little bit older
so just for a moment. So Kathryn, when relative to all of this, did you leave Disney and join Rebecca?
After I had Katie in New York City, and then my husband got transferred to Boston, that's when I technically left. So we were living in Boston.
What were you doing?
I was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay, got it.
So I was working at the Y so that I could get a free membership. I was working at... But we weren't there very long when Al went out to shovel the driveway, and he grew up in West Palm Beach, and he shoveled the driveway with a garden shovel because we didn't own a snow shovel.
No, I get it.
And came back in and took a shower and went to leave, and the whole driveway was covered again. He's like, "We're done. I'm going to get us out of here." He actually got a job with Disney, so that moved us back to Florida.
Okay.
And to back up just a little bit, when Rebecca decided to leave Disney, she sent out this beautiful announcement, and I got one, and I called her kind of jokingly, but rather serious, and said, if you need a Boston office, I'd be happy to run that for you. And before I knew it, I had this beautiful gold packet with my own little business cards printed on vellum in the really cool font.
Responded to her?
Yeah.
She said,
brilliant, Rebecca.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And I still have it. And I still have the.
It was like printed on like the desk jet. It was like vellum,
awesome.
But I was fancy because it was vellum. At the time.
You should patent
with
that
gold
idea.
ink, and I still have them all. I haven't even cut them all. I still have a sheet that was never cut up. Well, then we wound up coming back to the Orlando area. And of course, I wanted to live in Celebration to be near Rebecca and all of our friends. So that was in 2002 when I came back, summer of 2002. And then I think in spring of 2003, I said, I want to go. I was staying at home and I was helping her a little bit here and there.
Okay.
I
And then
didn't really have much for you to help me with.
But that's okay.
It was lean in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was lean for a while.
And so I had Katie and she had Annie. So every once in a while I'd be like, can I have Annie to play with Katie? And I was more doing things with them at the park, but talking to Rebecca every day. And then I thought, well, I kind of want to get a job. I need to support, contribute to the income. And I called her and said, hey, I have an interview to go back to Disney part-time in the wedding department. And I think this was in the spring of 2004. And she said, I think I'm going to sign my first 2 clients. Why don't you just come work with me?
And again, this is, of course, not yet Engaged. This is Engaging Concepts.
Yes.
The branding
the consulting. Yeah, it was really primarily what it was when we were really doing that full boat was consulting to very similar to what the work that we did at Disney, which was going in and doing, marketing, positioning, consulting, customer service, training, a lot of training of frontline people. Yeah. So companies like Sandals and, we did a big project for 3 years for Hilton Worldwide. We did Intercontinental hotels. We did a lot of small hotels. We did Holiday Inns in the Caribbean. Quite honestly, we did a lot of things that weren't very glamorous. My very first client was Orlando Harley-Davidson and putting together a biker wedding program. So think about it. I left in 2001. I finally was at the point where I felt like I could offer her really part-time work in 2004. So it was certainly not an overnight success. We kind of plodded along.
Right. And you all are in your 30s
while.
At this point, right?
We were in our 30s, yes.
Okay.
We're not in our 30s anymore. Sadly, time marched on.
50s, so we're.
Oh, well.
It's all relative.
Yes.
Do you know what my mother always says? She's got to have older friends and younger friends. So I make sure I have older friends. I feel plenty
We do.
young.
We have a few older friends and we have a lot of young friends. And we keep thinking that we're that age, but we're not. But that's okay. We're seasoned.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're now working together, 2003. And again, I want to kind of tie this into, you're traveling at this point too, right? Obviously, you're working out of Florida.
And at the time, I was doing a significant amount of travel.
How are you?
I'm sorry. It was spring of 2003.
Was it 3?
It only took you. Yeah, it was 2003.
It only took me 3.
Yeah, 2 years.
So you both have, very young girls, you know, not relatively early in the marriage also. Yeah. How are you both, again, as mothers, women, how are you handling? Because I'm sure that so many people, guys too, but especially women are struggling with this thinking, I whether or not they're married yet, they want to be the ones who do want to have kids. It's like, when am I going to fit this in? I mean, in this world of wedding business, like a lot of businesses, but we're all so busy and so much is going on, especially the people that are doing their own businesses, planners, all kinds of people in the business. I just can't imagine thinking, how am I going to work in and when, children, let alone, again, staying present, in relationships. How is that all going for both of you? Whoever wants to go first here.
It's kind of a blur. I mean, I look back on a lot of that, and I quite honestly give anything to have it back now.
What do you mean by that? Have what?
Those years were such a blur. We were starting the company. We were scaling the company. We were growing it. We both had, so we each have 2 daughters. So we each had young kids. I mean, we had toddlers when we were babies and toddlers, really. I mean, I look back and it was we made it work, but it was a complete blur. We relied a lot on each other. Like sometimes Kath would take all 4 girls.
Yeah, I think I find a lot now. I read so much about people writing articles about how hard it is and how much time they don't have. And I think maybe instead of writing these articles, you should just be present and take care of what you need to take care of. I think it was kind of that wedding mentality when you just keep going and you kind of have to have that waffle brain where you compartmentalize everything that you need to get done. And we got up really early and we stayed up late and everybody got fed and they were safe and they were happy. And we worked on the business when we could and we were present with our families. You just kept going.
And I think that's one of the great advantages, and certainly one of the reasons that I left Disney. And I know that Kath ended up not going back, is when you own your own business, you're working all the time, but it is a lifestyle and it is very different because I didn't have to get up and put the pantyhose and the pumps on and go be at the door or at the stand-up meeting at 8 a.m.
So were you both
we had a like we still work from home. We still work from home.
Oh, you still do. And I assume you both must have had very supportive husbands too.
Very, yes.
And that, I mean, honestly, if there's a key to anything, I really think it's having that support network in place, friends, family, but certainly husbands that don't look at it as I'm babysitting the kids.
Yeah.
That was never an option. It was, I always said it's not 50-50, it's 100-100 or more, so it has to be, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without both Al and Patrick and all the support.
Mapping out travel. This is when I'll be traveling. And we would, of course, set up babysitters while we were gone and make sure everything needed to be taken care of.
But nannies or?
You had a nanny.
I did.
She was
not a live-in, a wonderful woman who came and actually watched, neither of our kids ever went to daycare. They never spent a day in daycare. So somehow we did this. I was very lucky. I had my mom and dad and my mother-in-law around the corner. So I had an extra level of support.
But while you're home, that's another thing. Again,
working from home, there's the only downside to it. And I used to say to my husband all the time, you got to go to the office. You got to turn this off. You got to have time in the car to decompress on the way home. When you work from home, anybody that works from home knows there's no gray. It's all blends together. There is no shutting down for the day and having a little, even an 8-minute commute to decompress and kind of go into dad mode or whatever.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then as they got older, they started in preschool.
Yeah.
So just about the time things started getting busy, we were like, okay, they're in school from 9 to 3. Huh? Yeah. So it was like work, pick them up, get them to bed and then go back to work.
Wow.
Late. So.
Yeah.
It's a lot of late night. There were a lot.
So do you feel that this
nights.
affected also your relationships with your husbands as well?
I mean, I think it's taxing. I mean, and I think it's hard when what we have 2 husbands that both work at Disney and have that structure.
Oh, they both do?
They both work at Disney. So we understand that company too, which is good. We understand the company culture and, it's not like we didn't work there.
Right.
And then you've got 2, people who work from home and have their own business and kind of make our own hours. So I think that's an interesting dynamic, but at least we both came from that environment. So I think there was a level of discipline having worked for Disney, both of us for so many years, that's never left us. You know, there's a way we approach it, I think, because of that. But we can do it in our yoga pants with hair in a ponytail, no makeup.
Well, I think there's also something about choosing, a partner who gets it, and it's going to be tough for everyone. And they also, I'm sure, have their own, issues when they need to be away and things like that. But a partner who I guess gets it and is committed and knows, you know what, we're all going to be busting ass for a while.
Yeah. Well, and we fell into it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
We're accidental entrepreneurs. It's certainly, it's not like when we got married, it was like, and I have my own company and you work for Disney. So we really evolved into the roles that we have, because really when we got married, all four of us were working for Disney. So a lot of things shifted and a lot of things evolved. And you know what? There was a lot of discomfort along the way. No lie. I mean, you're still, having just 19 years yesterday, it's like, it's not always easy. Yeah. And there's a lot of times where someone has to give 180 and the other person's giving 20. I mean, because you're not there or zero because you're traveling.
I do think, speaking for myself, I think it does kind of ebb and flow and go back and forth. And I mean, did either of you do anything like couples therapy? I mean, I did that. That was very helpful. Okay.
Actually, well,
you're both laughing and glint in the eyes.
In the fall of 2007, my husband, who's my husband at the time now, decided he wanted to get divorced. Totally out of the blue. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah. Wait, 2007?
This is 2007.
Did you have two kids at this time?
2 kids, 5 and 7. Completely shocked. Rebecca became my therapist. And I did have, real therapy, and we were separated for a few months. I got divorced. We were divorced for, I think, 1.5 years. And then we realized that we actually wanted to be together. We wanted to keep our family together, and we got back together in 2009. But through all of that was a huge change. I was now a single parent. Wow. Thank goodness I had this incredible job with this incredible person who was so supportive throughout everything that we were doing, that I could process everything that was happening and still work. And in the midst of all that, we created Engage. So something,
if you really think about it, Engage happened for you, one of the most difficult for both of us, because I was living it with her.
These are the conferences.
So these are the conferences. Okay. So Engage, the very first Engage was Engage 08.
June you were 08,
I was traveling to Japan. I was in Japan for right before the event. I mean, if we really look back now and say we had no right. I mean, the fact that we pulled this together at, quite honestly, some of the lowest points, right? Just emotionally. And,
sure.
I mean, it was really tough time. And our biggest client was in Japan and China. So we were managing, 5 a.m. conference calls or 2 a.m. conference calls.
Oh my God.
It was a really crazy time.
I'm exhausted right now.
It was.
But I think because I had a reason to get up every day and I had something positive to focus on, I didn't have the chance to lay in my bed and cry, because I thought I have to get up and go to work. I had to get up. I remember my therapist saying to me one time, the fact that you get up and brush your teeth and take a shower is huge at this point. And I was like, wow, and I'm going to work and my kids are in school. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was a mess, but I had something fun and great to focus on and someone to listen, someone who knew all the players and could help me get through it. So that happened in November of 2007. In the spring is when we really said, let's try to make this happen. And
actually the interesting, talk about something else that happened is we had been speaking with, at the time, it was Waldorf, the Waldorf collection, who, was part of Hilton. Sure. It's changed a little bit since, but I think we talked with them for 9 months. I flew out to Beverly Hills to do a major presentation, to pitch the business. It was a huge multi-pronged, integrated, worldwide project. And, I think in April, it was supposed to start in June. We got notice that the gentleman was fired.
Oh, no.
And so, when something like that happens, it's like a hot potato. No one's going to pick it up. Yeah. It was sort of a passion project of his.
Right.
He was at corporate. He was high enough up, but then it died on the vine. I mean, we were like, oh my gosh, we had a contract. We had saw, you sign your part of the contract and send it back and you just wait for them. That's formality at that point for them to execute it.
Oh my God.
And he got fired in between him having the contract on his desk and not sending it back.
Let me ask for a moment. Let me stop right there, because maybe this is representative of just these kind of moments that, of course, happen for any entrepreneur throughout the business. So in that particular case, your passion is into it too. You're excited. It's about, financial possibilities here.
Oh, absolutely.
And more career.
In fact, we were talking about hiring another person to handle it. It was big.
Here's what I want to know. How, in terms of your feeling and dealing with this, how did you deal with this? Was there a time of depression?
No, because I remember where we were sitting. We go most every morning. We try to walk, but it doesn't always happen. But the goal is to drop our kids up to school, walk every morning, and then we meet at a little diner right in Celebration.
This is how you start every day for the most part?
Called Market Street Cafe.
Like
we meet
kind
there.
of,
we have a table.
Not meditative, but in a sense, to kind of ground yourselves.
Staff meeting.
It's staff meeting.
Every morning.
We're usually there from like 9 to 11:30.
Interesting. Okay.
We rarely do conference calls or any calls before 11:30.
Okay.
We just don't. We get all of our talking out. We get all of our personal updates. We're communicators. So we get all caught up on all the gossip and just anything that we're struggling with or want to fill each other in. And then we usually brainstorm on work.
But also I want to, any stress and anxiety, because I know for myself, when I wake up first thing in the morning, if I have any, that's when I feel it. And again, for me, I told you earlier, I'll exercise and I'll listen to podcasts, and that's my way to, and when I come back, I got that body high and everything. I take my shower. Not that it's completely gone, but I feel so much better. So it sounds like that was also became a technique for the two of you, right?
Absolutely.
Personal or business stress.
Yeah.
And then you can now get into your day.
Yeah. I mean, because we rarely sit down and start talking about work. I mean, sometimes we will, especially when we're really close to engage. It's pretty intense.
Right.
But in times like this, where it's not as intense, we're sitting in between. But I remember where we were sitting, and we had talked about doing something like Engage for a long time, since like 2003. I mean, we had little bit cards made up and things and never actioned on it at all.
Is this when you got that news?
We got the news about this big deal. That literally was it was like a deal. It was a huge life-changing kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it was really done. And it wasn't, because I have also learned that over the years, nothing is done until it's done.
I got a pit in my stomach listening
I mean,
to
it's
this.
really not
relate.
done. It's just like places that have been hosting Engage, and they say, we're 99% there. And then they haven't been the place.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not done until it's done.
Right.
I mean, I'm still learning that, right? Because you think, well, it's 99%. That's not done.
Yeah.
And so Kath looked, and she's like, I can remember where she was sitting and the light coming in, and she's like, why don't we do Engage? And this was in April, and we did it June
3rd.
So you took that energy, which was really rough, tough, difficult, and you basically channeled it into, and in a sense, the door closes, one opens.
And I mean,
you
about
busted it wide open.
Absolute, I mean, it wasn't an overnight kind of change, but talk about something that's changed our lives in such immeasurable ways.
So who would know in that moment, right when you first got the news, that this is going to start something completely wonderful?
It was just like, well, wait a minute. Now we've got this time. We've got this time. We've got
that energy.
We've got this energy, and we did not waste any time. It was not. We didn't stir around. We really jumped in. And that was in April, and we produced the event. The first event, it was much smaller. It was 70 people, but in 6 weeks.
Wow. But is this at the cost, as you continue to go and build what you've built? How do you do both? It's two separate businesses. I don't get it.
It's two separate businesses, and for a long time we were really
did one suffer for the other?
Too. Well, it became harder and harder to have the clients, to be honest.
Yeah.
The consulting clients, because they were big corporate clients.
The ones on retainer kind of thing, you're saying?
The big retainer. Yeah, we had a couple of big retainer clients,
Yeah.
and that we kept for a number of the first years. And they were kind of like, oh, you're Engage on the side, like is your little event coming up? Like there was a big disconnect actually between the two. Right?
Yeah,
and so there would be sometimes one of our clients would say, oh, isn't your little event coming up? And we say, yeah. And this was into it.
Let him think it's little, so
let
that
him think it's
still
little.
available.
But I mean, out of that, it wasn't like a thunderbolt like that, but looking back, it was really pivotal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like Engage took off and we're like, this is amazing. It's going to pay all our bills.
It was
and
great. Steady.
Yeah.
And there were a number of years. How many events did we do until we were not even sure we were still going to have another one? I mean, I think we did 5 before we knew we're either going to not do any more ever or we're going to keep going. And that was in 2010.
And I'm trying to think when I went, because I went to 2, and it must have been, actually, it maybe was around, I don't know, 11, 2012.
Didn't you come to the Breakers in 2010?
No, not the Breakers. So it might have been after, was it at the Grand Cayman? That might have been my first one. Then I did another. And the thing is, to me, I know it's grown since then even more. And now Europe, we'll come to that. But I remember thinking, in a positive way, this is really highly polished. They really got it down to a science. But now you're smiling.
Gosh.
No? Oh, talk to me. Because I thought, oh my God.
Where I think it was highly polished is really all roads for us go back to Disney. Mm-hmm. And, we did a lot of really major events when we were at Disney. Yeah. And so where I think our polish comes in and you don't I never underestimate those years that we spent there, how polished we know because of that. Would you say that? I think all of that is that's why we could make something look much more polished. It was like, behind the curtain, it's still just the two of us in our yoga pants.
We go back there. But I think we also made a point from the very beginning, like you said earlier, it was something we created that we wanted to attend. We had everything's by the first name, not the last name. We wanted people to feel welcome. So I think initially that community started and people wanted more to feel special and they kept wanting to come back. And so I think that helped. And the team that we built, a lot of them were Rebecca's parents, our good friend Heidi's parents. I mean, our friends from Disney that came and helped pull it off. And everyone fires on all those cylinders of you keep going, you keep smiling, you never say no, you make it happen. And I think that really helped from the beginning too.
Being, someone who attended it. And again, I think it was, the one at the Grand Cayman at the Ritz. I remember it in terms of the feeling of, like you say, being very personal. I loved the environment and I really felt like I was connecting, and not just with people there, but with myself through also a lot of the speakers and just the conversations. People would really share some vulnerable things. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just strictly, hey, I did this and I made 800,000. And so I remember at one point, it was later in the conference, I was walking down the beach. We had some downtime. I don't think he's going to mind if I mention his name, but I'm walking down the beach and I'm feeling not sad. I'm just feeling, I don't know. I was like,
emotional.
Wow. Yeah, it is emotional. And again, it's
a
not
roller
negative.
Coaster.
Yeah, it is kind of. And so, maybe I was a little sad, and which also can spark wonderful things, but it was one of those moments and I needed that moment too, right? Especially looking back. So I'm walking down the beach, and again, I don't think he'll mind, but Ed Libby is walking from the other side toward me. We didn't really know each other very well. And, I could see it in his eyes too. And we stopped for a moment. We started to talk and we started to share some of this, him and I, on that beach. And it struck me because at the time, he's one of the speakers, real big guys in the business that, I'm attending at this point. I mean, I'm doing great in my business, but I'm on that side. And we shared that same kind of feeling. And it did spark a lot of wonderful things. And you've got some magic with this conference. So I just wanted to add, I experienced what you're talking about.
And I think for us, we can't, all of those moments happened outside of what we created, and we try very hard just to create environments that can happen, but we don't try too hard to force it. So you won't ever see us at an Engage saying, "Oh, Andy, you need to meet Susie. I think you guys can have a wonderful thing in common." We don't. All we say is we want to create this environment in this setting and create these opportunities within the sessions and the programming and without, so that there is white space. There is time for people just to connect. And sometimes you connect more meaningfully than others, but you have to come in and be vulnerable and be open. Yeah. To that as well, as opposed to, so it's just interesting, but I feel like those are the things that really is sort of the magic of Engage that is outside of what we're doing.
I was going to say, and it's also not just because you have high powered speakers, and it's set up beautifully. It's incredible environments. It's not just that. You're right. You create an environment. You do and people are making connections. And, I think also being in that kind of a somewhat vulnerable state, you really there's an opportunity to take more in, right? Mm-hmm. You can take it in differently more.
Right. If you come open. And, I think one of the things we realized after a number of years of doing it, and like I said, we're doing our 20th one in June, but a couple events in, maybe halfway in or so, we started to get some feedback of people feeling like, well, you know what? It feels like people are, a little cliquey or a little in groups, or it's harder for me as it gets bigger. And as people, has a summer camp like feeling. Yeah. People are coming back. They're happy to see each other. So there were some natural things that were happening. And so we're trying to always be really in tune to that and sort of hear that and say, okay, what can we do we certainly don't want to get up and scold people and say, make sure you talk to everybody or make sure you don't, we don't want to do that. But what we wanted, one of the things that we did is we created a first timer session that we've been doing for the past couple of years, where we literally take non-speakers. We take people everywhere from their second time up to their 15th time or whatever it may be, a real cross section. And we actually have them during we don't anymore even go. We're not in there, but it's before everything starts to give real honest advice on how to approach this experience.
What a great idea.
And it's really, and what's happened is those 7 or 8 people now become almost very unofficially ambassadors. And, you're a new person. You feel like you can go up to Amber or, from Shutterfly and say, thanks for that tip. I'm feeling a little this, or can you introduce me to this person? Whatever.
Well, and all the first timers then are in a room and they think, oh, I'm not alone. Everybody else is here for the first time and doesn't know anybody.
And I want to say, look, as outgoing as I can be and all that still, I haven't been to any conferences in a while, but when I would go, I remember still there's again that vulnerable feeling, kind of anxious. It's like, am I gonna,
it brings out everyone's the introvert in everyone.
Well, and also here's another thing. I'm not a wedding planner. I know you have all kinds of people there, but you do have a lot emphasis on the wedding planners and wedding designers. And so these people, who are coming to the conference, there's so many of themselves in that room. There's almost wow, it's not just me. And then you get caught in this, the superficial stuff. Oh, so-and-so I heard did that wedding and she's got her own business and she's talking about getting that client. And oh my God, am I ever going to be able to get, I remember from hearing people speak, the insecurities tend to come up too. So I love this idea of what you're saying. It's like it's almost like a security blanket to a certain degree to help you have that cushion.
And it took us a couple of iterations of saying, how do we do this? Do we say something from the stage? How do we encourage? We tried some different kind of team building. And once we kind of struck on we've noticed a difference in terms of it is intimidating. It's intimidating. It's still intimidating to us.
How so?
I think we have put that pressure on ourselves that we want everyone to feel like it's worth coming to and that they're going to be happy and fulfilled and they're going to walk away and it be a great experience. But you can't sell that. You can't. That has to happen kind of naturally. So we do find ourselves kind of hiding in the corner or in the back of the room, like, oh my gosh.
And how do you deal with it? Like, what do you do in order to deal with those feelings you're having?
And we just talk each other off the ledge. Usually when one is freaking out, the other one's like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Right.
And sometimes if we do, it's the yin and yang thing. It's like, it may not be.
And I think we are so lucky. We have, over the years, we have created this collaborative team of just so many amazing people that support us. Because while it is on the day-to-day basis, just the two of us, we are, we have these amazing collaborators that are extensions now of our team. And that
it's very helpful.
They almost, in some cases, if they see one of us or both of us just kind of, feeling overwhelmed, but it is very overwhelming. It's a lot of pressure. And, so a lot of times they'll come in and they're like, we got
took care of it. Yeah.
We're fine. We don't have, we're not in the corner, but
it sounds like you also are, not just the word delegating, but you're also letting go in a certain way, right? Is that
letting go? And we have a group of people who know how to anticipate because most of the people who work with us are doing events themselves. So we know
how lucky are we? The people that really are on our team are like some of the top event planners in the world.
No, I get that, but it's still a whole nother thing for you all because this is your conference.
And it took us quite a few years to let go. There were a couple of events where we were up literally,
all
I think
long. We didn't
did
sleep.
not, and everyone's been there, I think, in their business, but there's one event in particular where we came back, it was in Grand Cayman, and it might have even been your first event. I think it was. And we were behind. We weren't delegating at all. We were trying to control everything because that's who we were in Disney background. And we laid on top of the covers for, I think, 45 minutes from about 5 to 5:45 in the morning and in the middle of producing the event. So, we were running on fumes. And I think, after a couple of those experiences, you're kind of like, look, we've got to give up some of this control. As this grows, and I think as we were just talking with you a little bit earlier about any business, that is the hardest thing I think to do. But once you do let go and you surround yourself with people who you can trust, and there have been trial and error. There's been some people that, once you kind of lock in and find those people that you can really trust.
Yeah. Then you got to let go.
Been, I think we've been enjoying the experience so much more. We literally have to we have to mentally say to each other, we are going to enjoy this experience. Wow. We had a couple of Engage events that are we didn't enjoy because we didn't enjoy it. And we look back and we look at the pictures and we're like, oh my gosh, that's such a shame. So we've made a conservative effort, I think, over the past few years to say, we are in these extraordinary settings with this extraordinary group of people, and we're no longer going to not allow ourselves to take it in to enjoy it. Isn't it
interesting how hard that is? I told you that I still work with Sean Lowe. He's been helping me for 6 years. I mean, no matter how much success, I've got, there's still so much. And also I've been in therapy. And so the therapist and Sean, separately, they'll say to me, you got to enjoy this. I mean, if it weren't for the two of them to keep that in front of my face, this would not be working for me. And I can say now, I really am enjoying it all. But I had to be reminded.
And you have to be really mindful. I think we've had to be really mindful of stopping and saying, wait a minute. We've both had experiences in our lives that we've realized what really matters. And that at the end of the day, this is an event and everyone's going to come and really, we know what's important. So it's true. I mean, all you need are a few of those life kind of experiences to kind of shake you up and say, you know what, none of us are promised tomorrow. We don't know what the future holds, and enjoy it right now. Be present. And that it is hard. I mean, you do have to kind of fight it every day. Yeah. But I do think we had a speaker canceled at 8:30 in the morning. He was our keynote speaker.
Come on. The keynote?
Yeah. It's the island.
Yeah. It's the island. And you know what? We were like, everyone else is here.
So you didn't freak out, flip out?
No, and somebody had said, I think David Beam very early on, and I'm very mindful of it. And sometimes I have to, I'm more so than Kath's so unflappable and so calm, and I'm much more keyed up.
I'm more internal. She's more internal. External. Yeah.
And, David said a long time ago, but it's so true. We are responsible for the energy that we bring into that room. And we feel that we know we are responsible, the two of us. It's just like a bride and groom at a wedding are responsible for the energy they bring into the room. But we all are responsible for the energy we're bringing into the room. And I think that's a lot of pressure for us. But sometimes I have to be reminded, you're looking completely flustered. So I think over the years we have learned, because we have sometimes let the energy we've brought into the room not necessarily been it's stressed energy, or people can tell there's something going on and they can see it in our eyes. And so I think in any business, I think that at home, I'm responsible for and I'll think I'm responsible for the energy I'm bringing into this house right now.
Imagine for our kids.
For our kids.
I mean,
but that's one of those nuggets from Engage. I mean, there's lots of them kind of floating around, but that's one of those that really landed with me very early on, that we are all responsible for the energy that we bring into the room. And that's a choice. So we had to make a concerted choice that day, like that day where we've had some of those things happen, and say, how are we going to react? How are we going to react to this, and how are we going to frame this up? It took us a little while to figure out how we were going to say it when we thought the right timing was to share that with everybody. And the reality is you just have to be, we were honest and vulnerable, and we said, look, you know what? You as an audience are very discerning, and you hold us to very high standards, but you also give us grace because you've all been here and this has happened to everybody before. And so we're just going to tell you what happened because there's nothing else. We can't control this, but instead of letting it really take the day down,
we shifted and went on with bigger news.
I want to say again, I appreciate this so much, both of you, the energy that you bring, the passion, the excitement, the vulnerability. This has been a blast for me. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all this with me. Yeah.
This has been The Wedding Biz. You can find us at theweddingbiz.com and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Wedding Biz Show. If you want to support the show, we'd be grateful if you shared it with colleagues, friends, and family. We'd also appreciate your review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
It won't crack, baby, it'll never shatter, no matter what we go through. I gave my heart to you. I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you make my dreams come true. It won't crack, baby, it'll never shatter, no matter what we go through. I gave
You've just listened to what I hope was a riveting conversation with Rebecca Grinnals and Kathryn Arce of Engage. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. That would be a great help for the show. And be sure to join us next week as we bring a new episode of The Wedding Biz and The Next Level with planner and designer Kevin Lee. And enjoy the rest of your holiday.